presentation. In this presentation, I want to show and present the TLS decryption options that Niagara networks offer on their packet brokers. In this presentation, I'm not talking about why we should encrypt and decrypt. Encryption is basically, it's a standard now on the internet. All the traffic that, or most of the traffic that is going through the internet or over the internet is encrypted currently. That also means that from a network visibility perspective, we lost sight on what's going on in the network. So decryption has become a necessity to get more information about what's going on in the network, to enable security features on the network and make sure that the traffic that enters and leaves the network is at least secure and inspected. So just a little bit of background on SSL and TLS, because actually TLS and SSL do already have a long existence. Back in 1994, Netscape, one of the first browser builders, started with encryption of traffic. Before that, traffic was never encrypted. So if you had a session, regardless whether it was a terminal session, so with telnet, or have a transfer session, FTP, or maybe a web session with HTTP, everything was unencrypted. So if you took a copy of the traffic, you could easily see what was going on. But also there was hardly any banking facilities, no. So there was, in the start, there was no real requirement for doing decrypted traffic. But when the internet became more important and became more of a means of communication, it became apparent that encryption would be more and more important. Hence the reason that Netscape started in 1994 with their first encryption methods called SSL. Actually, SSL 1.0 was never used. It was very buggy. But in 1995, SSL 2.0 was introduced, and that's really started off the encryption. In 1996, we started with SSL 3.0, but it was still only Netscape. In 1996-97, the IETF started with a project to make SSL more, or encryption in general, more a standard. Microsoft didn't like the SSL acronym because it was from Netscape. In the end, so IETF decided to use the term transport layer security. Well, over the years, I'm not going to go over all the years. Over the years, we saw TLS 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and currently we are at TLS 1.3, being a very secure protocol. But with TLS 1.3, it became harder to decrypt the traffic. Up to TLS 1.2, it was possible to decrypt the traffic if you had the certificates that the traffic was encrypted with. It was relatively easy to use this certificate to decrypt the traffic. This was due to the static encryption methods, the static keys that were used to encrypt the traffic. So you had an encryption, but once you had the key, you were able to decrypt this traffic. With the introduction of TLS 1.2, we started to see ephemeral cipher suites. So cipher suites that used ephemeral keys that were only exist during the session, and once the session was over, that key was never used. In TLS 1.3, the static keys were all removed from the TLS definitions. So TLS 1.3 only supports ephemeral keys, which means that for every session that is opened, each HTTP session, every time you go to a website, a new key is used for this session. Even if you leave the website to go to another website and come back, you will get a new session. You could easily compare it with leaving your house, and every time you come back to your house, you have to use a new key to open your door. So that also means that it becomes very hard to do decryption of the traffic because we just don't know that key. And that also means that man in the middle, pretending to be the server and pretending to be the client, becomes a necessity to decrypt traffic. A little bit of background on certificates and decryption. In this example, you see there is a request and negotiation between a client and a server. Certificates are issued for a specific domain or full qualified domain name, which can be www.domain.com, domain.whatever, or you can have a wildcard certificate that says, okay, all my servers in this domain can use this certificate, and we only need to use one. Very important, encryption sits between the transport and the application layer, which actually means that we don't need to have any new protocols to start communicating in an encrypted way. This encryption, this TLS encryption, we often know it for HTTPS, so going to a website, going to an encrypted website, but this encryption can be universally deployed for any protocol. So you could use HTTP or the TLS for emails protection or email encryption. You could use it for your FTP encryption. So all protocols can use this encryption because it actually the TLS is a layer around the protocols that communicate and are used for the transport of the data. When a client requests an encrypted connection to the server, it sends a list of encryption methods, or cipher suite as they're called, to the server saying, hey, listen, these are the cipher suites that I support, and the server responds with a list of ciphers. Okay, these are the ones that I support. Let's do the negotiation, and we negotiate the highest level of security that both are supporting. Because of this ephemeral key usage, the decryption, if we want to do decryption, we need to sit in between the two, and the server and the client. So the packet broker or the decryption engine connects to the server on behalf of the client, and it pretends to be the server for the client. So the actual client thinks it connects to the server, but the packet broker or the encryption engine responds on behalf of the client saying, oh yes, I am the client, but on the back end, the encryption engine will start a new session with the actual server to really get the information that the client is requesting. And the part in between where we don't have encryption, this is where we can create a copy of the traffic and we can send it for inspection. So very important to make sure that the client has an authenticated connection and a secure connection to the server. This server certificate needs to be installed on the packet broker or on the encryption engine. So when the client connects to the server, or thinks he connects to the server, he is presented with the certificate that the server would serve on to the client. This also means that in order to do really true decryption and be invisible to the client, we have to own that certificate that is running on the server. So that's very important. The private key, the certificate, is required to do the real decryption. In general, there are 3 decryption methods or deployment methods. The first is what we call passive out-of-band, and that is actually trying to decrypt the old cipher suites that were there before TLS 1.1 or before TLS 1.2, the static cipher suites, where the having the certificate was sufficient to do the decryption. So we take a copy of the traffic, we send it to the decryption engine, and if we have the certificate of that traffic, we can decrypt that traffic because it's a static key. This is passive out-of-band. For everything that uses ephemeral keys, so keys that are generated on the fly and are negotiated between the client and the server, we need to be inline. So either passive inline or active inline. What's the difference? Passive inline means that we will set up a session to the client and a session to the server. And the part in between, where we have the unencrypted traffic, we just take a copy of the traffic and send it out for inspection. So that's called passive inline. We are inline, but we're not actively sending that traffic to an inspection device or a reporting device. We just take a copy of the traffic and we send that traffic to an inspection device. It supports all cipher suites because we are inline. We are actually the party that negotiates with the server and with the client, and setting up on both sides a session to get a full connection between the actual client and the actual server. Actually, active inline means that we do decrypt the traffic from the client to the server, but before we send that traffic to the server, we send it to an inspection engine. That inspection engine can inspect this session and can even block this session when it sees that there is malicious traffic in this actual traffic. So active inline means that we send the traffic to an inline appliance that can inspect the traffic. That can be one appliance, that can be a chain of appliances. Because we use a packet broker, and that packet broker can send the traffic to multiple appliances, or have a service chain where traffic is going from one inspection appliance to another inspection appliance, and only when it leaves the final appliance, the traffic is actually sent to the server or returned from the server to the client. So that's the difference between the passive out-of-band, the passive inline or active out-of-band, and the active inline. 3 case studies I took. The first one is from a major European shipyard that builds commercial and military vessels. They wanted to have a decryption engine to inspect their web traffic, or actually the application traffic that was going onto the internet for remote workers and customers that had access or have access to their applications. So we used the Packetron for decryption, but they also wanted to have this inspection engine integrated on the packet broker. And this is where the combination of visibility intelligence, so the decryption part, as well as the visibility virtualization that we support on the Packetron, could be combined. and use the Packetron for the web application firewall. So the application firewall is actually installed and running in the packet broker, as well as the TLS decryption, which is also running in the packet broker. So everything stays within the packet broker and is and traffic that is decrypted is never seen outside the packet broker, which is also very important for the customer. If traffic is decrypted, it cannot leave the packet broker. It's not allowed to leave the packet broker. So all the inspection is done inside the appliance. The second case study is about voice connections. So if you set up a voice connection, there are basically two different traffic flows. One is the control flow, setting up the connection between the client and the server, or in this case, between a session border controller that controls all the connections between the client and the actual voice server, and the voice stream itself. Most of the time, the customer is not really interested in the voice connection, but what they are looking for is the control connection, to see whether the quality of service that the client is experiencing is actually good enough. So in this case, we took the voice connections and just forwarded these between the client and the server. We're not touching these voice connections at all. But the signaling connections are encrypted as well. So we decrypt these signaling connections and send it to a monitoring probe. In this case, the voice connection, which is Microsoft Teams, can use an API, and that API information, the monitoring probe can use this API connection to get more information from the server about this specific session. Since we are now capable of decrypting this session, so the session information is available in a monitoring probe, that monitoring probe can use this information to request more information, quality information, etc., through the API from Microsoft Teams. So decrypt the connection, the signaling session between the Oracle session border controller and the clients, enables the customer to get more information about the session that the client is, the customer is running, and can create a dashboard on of the sessions and the quality these sessions have. Finally, a case study for application security, where in a national bank, where the server is actually running APIs, so to get more information or send information to a financial system. API calls are used from different front ends. That can be web front ends, can be on other application front ends. But this information is sent to a financial transaction system. So it is very important that these calls are not compromised. It's very important that these connections are secure. So in this case, we combined the application from layer 7 defense, who is actually inspecting the API calls, together with the SSL decryption, so we can decrypt the HTTPS calls from the different front ends, decrypt and inspect these sessions before, and these API calls before they are sent to the financial system. So a real-time API inspection before these calls are sent to the system. Integrating again both both appliances, both applications on the packet broker enables us to assure that decrypted traffic is not leaving the packet broker and this information is not seen in a decrypted form outside the packet broker. So it's a secure platform for the customer. This slide says explanation, but actually what I, during my calls with several partners, I received the question, how can we show these, this SSL or TLS decryption? We want to demo this, this application. So what I did in this presentation is just I took the configuration that I normally use in a presentation and just for explanation how they can be set up for customers or for customer demos. Passive out-of-band decryption. I use an N2 series packet broker, and actually you'll see three Packetrons in this system. In this configuration, I actually use one for passive decryption, one for active decryption, and I have a packet broker running for virtual systems. In this configuration, we only use one, just the passive decryption engine. A client connected to a port, another port connected to a server. This server is just running a number of web services and have an encryption or a certificate engine. So I know that these web servers do use a certificate. A copy of that certificate is installed on the Packetron, and I use a tab to just copy that traffic and show it in Wireshark. During this decryption, a copy of the traffic is sent from the Packetron to another Wireshark port to show the decrypted traffic. From a configuration perspective in the Packetron, it's actually just 4 lines. Taking a copy of the client server traffic, taking a copy of the server client traffic, send that copy of the traffic to the Packetron. Packetron tries to decrypt this traffic, and the decrypted traffic is going to a virtual port inside the Packetron, which we can send to a physical port where the packet capture, the Wireshark, is connected, so we can show the decrypted traffic. For active out-of-band, I use a pretty similar configuration. Again, a client connected to a packet broker port, the same server connection connected to another packet broker port, creating a copy of that traffic to show it on a Wireshark connection, and take that traffic and take the decrypted traffic and send it out on a fixed packet broker port where Wireshark is connected. Again, from a configuration perspective, client server traffic, we take that traffic, but since we do have an inline connection now, because we do active decryption, we take the client traffic, send that to the Packetron, hence we see a Packetron profile, and that traffic is re-encrypted again and going to the server. What I normally do is only send the traffic that we want to decrypt. So if it's HTTPS, I only send the HTTPS to the Packetron, and all the other traffic is direct sent from the client port to the server port. The Packetron can easily cope with that traffic, but it just takes traffic bandwidth through the Packetron, which we can easily divert and send directly to the egress port. Hence the reason that I take the traffic, only the traffic that we want to decrypt, and send it to the ports, and the rest is directly connected to the server. From server client traffic, exactly the same. Traffic from the server is going to the Packetron, and once it is decrypted, the decrypted traffic is going to my output port and re-encrypted and going to the client again. For this one, I have set up a small demo just to show what how it looks like. So for that, I will open up my my web browser, and this is the web page that I use for decryption. It's just a static web page with some text, one picture in it, and that's it. On the packet broker, we have to use this one. Just 4 lines. The client server traffic, as you saw, client server traffic, non-HTTPS server client that is not going to the Packetron, and my inline tab ports, so my client decrypted traffic and my server decrypted traffic going to the Wireshark connection. If I look at my Wireshark, then I can see there is some traffic, but what I can do is just, let me make sure that, yes, so we are continue with this one. Let's start this one as well, and just refresh my page. It should be able to, yes, there it is. Go to my Wireshark, let's stop it, and here we have the data, and we see it's TLS 1.3, and it's all encrypted traffic. We can't see anything, it's just as application data, but we can't do very much with it. However, if we go to the decrypted side, just go to the bottom of this one, and here we see the traffic decrypted, vestibulum, and we here see just the same traffic text in its decrypted form in coming out of the packet broker. So we see that this traffic is actually decrypted in a decrypted form, available in the packet broker, and through Wireshark, it is sent from the packet broker to Wireshark. So moving back to my presentation, traffic going from my client to the server, server sends a response. This traffic is decrypted and shown on the Wireshark connection connected to my packet broker port. Because this presentation can be made available outside as well, I created a copy of this of these slides or these windows and added it to the presentation. Finally, active inline decryption. Active inline decryption. On the client side, it's pretty much similar. Client, server, taking a copy of the traffic, but now the traffic is going through a firewall for inspection. So yet another tab connected to my firewall, or in between the firewall and the packet broker, to show that the traffic is really flowing through the firewall and going from the packet broker through the firewall back to the packet broker and re-encrypted, going to the client or to the server, depending it's whether it's client server or server client traffic. A flow chart on how the traffic is flowing through the packet broker. So client server port, traffic is coming into the packet broker, and we just look at the TCP port. In this case, it's HTTPS. So we look at port 443, If it is port 443, yes, okay, we decrypt it. If it's not port 443, just send it to my inline inspection appliance, because that inspection appliance does want to see all the traffic, not only the decrypted traffic, but it will probably wants to see all the traffic that is on the line. Just the encrypted traffic, we want to decrypt it before sending it out. If it is decrypted, we look at a label on the packet to see whether we have to send that traffic back for re-encryption or not. If it's not, if it does not need to be re-encrypted because it was traffic that never was encrypted, we send it out immediately to the egress port, or we re-encrypt the traffic, remove that tag that was added during the decryption, and send it out to the firewall, and vice versa. So client-server traffic and server-client traffic, both sides are encrypted and decrypted. In a configuration perspective, we can see these same flows, client-server traffic. So take that traffic and send it for decryption. And if it was encrypted, we encrypt it again, and do that for the client traffic and for the server traffic. And we can take a copy of that traffic and send it out for reporting. So even though we do inline decryption and send that traffic to an inline appliance, we are still able to create copies of that traffic as well and send it to another port for reporting. On the Packetron, very important if you are talking to customers, very important to discuss what the actual deployment of the Packetron is. Are we protecting a web server? Are we protecting any other protocols? Basically, the Packetron is able to decrypt any kind of protocol. So HTTP, HTTPS, IMAP, SIP-S, everything. Basically, all the protocols that have a counterpart in its unencrypted form, we can decrypt the secure version as well. We do support SSL 3.0 and all TLS versions, and depending on the version that you or the customer is using, we do support passive decryption or inline decryption. Some TLS enhancements like session resumption, if we can reuse an existing session, if that exists and it is cached by the server, we can use it. Some other features like speedy protocol or OCSP, which means the validity of the certificate checking can be done in a one-stage process. It's called OCSP. We do support that as well. Since we are mimicking the actual client, and there are different browsers use often a different, or I would say, type of HTTPS. HTTPS, even though it is standardized, different browsers use a kind of dialect, its own implementation form of HTTPS to connect to the server. So what we can do in the Packetron is use that client version or pretend to be a specific client version towards the server. So let's say you're using Google Chrome, then we impersonate Google Chrome as the browser. If you are using another browser, we can pretend to be that browser to talk to the client, just to make sure that the client gets the same information that than when it would connect to the server itself. very important that we support multiple of these browsers, both mobile and desktop browsers. Encryption is supported on multiple platforms. Initially, it was supported on the modular platform, the N2 platform, the 2845, 2847, and I just created a list of modules that you can use to do initial decryption. So one packet, the packet broker itself, the chassis, 1 times N2, 2845 or 2847. In this case, an 8-port packet broker module. So that's what you see here. The Packetron, a couple of SFPs to connect your appliances, and a decryption license. And for all of these, the equipment is basically the same. So 3 SFPs. On the active inline, we need 1 additional SFP because we are connecting an inline appliance. The only difference here is the license that you are installing on the Packetron. So a passive decryption license, an active out-of-band decryption license, or a man-in-the-middle decryption license. If you install the man-in-the-middle decryption license, you automatically have the other 2 as well. If you install the active out-of-band, then you also have the passive decryption license as well. As of this year, we introduced 2 new packet broker platforms, the 42486C and the 4540, which are fixed packet brokers or semi-fixed packet brokers, in a way that the packet broker ports are all fixed, but you are able to insert up to 2 Packetron modules at the rear. So these packet broker modules can be used to run any kind of virtualization, any kind of visibility intelligence applications, so deep duplication, packet slicing, etc., etc. Also, encryption is supported on these modules as well. So, what we do we need here? Basically, a chassis 42486C or 4540, 1 fixed Packetron, and a license. Here as well, again, the equipment for all the deployment methods is the same, just the license is different. And with that, I come at the end of my presentation. I don't know whether there are any questions, then please do so, and I will answer them.
So currently I don't see any raised hands or posted questions from the attendees, but we still have a minute or 2 to, to ask and raise any specific areas of interest that maybe we didn't cover or require some clarification. So anyone on this live webinar can still post question. I don't see anything specific here. All right, so Andre, I think with this, we can close this webinar. For all attendees, thank you for attending our webinar today. This webinar actually recorded, so we'll share the offline recording for those that couldn't attend. So thank you very much and have a good evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Or good noon. Thank you. Bye.